There is a profound and terrifying silence that hangs over the operating table, a silence that echoes the oldest prayer of humanity, the prayer not to die. We tell ourselves we have conquered the body with science and steel, yet in the shadow of a fever or the white-knuckle grip of recovery, we are still the same fragile creatures who huddled in the sanctuaries of ancient Greece, whispering to a son of the gods who held the power to cheat death. This is the story of Asclepius, the mortal who became a god, the physician who defied the natural order, and the tragic price of a perfect cure. Our journey takes us to the sun-drenched granite of the Hellenic world, a time when the line between the mortal and the divine was drawn in blood, but was constantly washed away by fate. The Greeks lived in a cosmos ruled by capricious Olympians, where disease was often viewed not as a malfunction of biology, but as a punishment, a curse, or a dart shot by an angry deity. To be sick was to be forsaken. Yet, amidst the thunderbolts of Zeus and the wrath of Ares, there emerged a different kind of power, a quiet, merciful art centered in the lush groves of Epidaurus. Here, the air was thick with the scent of pine and the sound of marble fountains, the sanctuary of Asclepius, the healer. The tale begins not with a god, but with a rage of fire. Chironis, a mortal woman of breathtaking beauty, was pregnant with the child of Apollo, the god of light and purity. But mortality is weak, and Chironis was seduced by a mortal shepherd. In a fury of righteous jealousy, Apollo sent his twin sister Artemis to destroy the woman who betrayed him. The arrows flew, and Chironis lay dead upon the pyre, the smoke of her funeral fire already beginning to rise. But as the flames licked at her flesh, a voice spoke, yet not from the dead woman, but from the womb. Apollo, struck by a sudden, terrible grief and responsibility, descended amidst the smoke. He cut the child from the burning body of his mother, saving the infant from the fire that claimed her. This was Asclepius, named for the gentle cessation of his Mothra's pain. The babe was not raised by his divine father, however. Apollo entrusted the boy to the centaur Chiron, the wisest of all the Earth's creatures. In the deep, green valleys of Mount Pelion, Asclepius grew up surrounded by the scent of herbs and the lowing of cattle. Chiron was a master of the healing arts, a sage who understood that medicine was a balance between the knowledge of poison and the power of the cure. While the other centaurs learned to wield clubs and rocks, Asclepius learned to wield the scalpel and the poultice. He became so skilled that he ceased to treat wounds and began to restore life itself. His legend grew until it rivaled the gods. He traveled the cities of Greece, a staff wrapped with a serpenta, the symbol of rebirth, and wisdoma in his hand. He was said to carry a liquid, a substance drawn from the veins of a gorgon, a potent elixir that could resurrect the dead. Wherever he walked, the blind saw, the lame walked, and the feverish cooled. But power, even the power of healing, draws the eyes of the king of the gods. Zeus, sitting upon his snow-capped throne on Olympus, watched Asclepius with a darkening brow. The Lord of the cosmos rules over a delicate balance, life and death, order and chaos. Zeus grants life, and Zeus, or his brother Hades, takes it away. It is the cycle, but Asclepius was cheating the cycle. One myth tells us that Zeus struck the physician with a thunderbolt not out of hate, but out of necessity. A gold had been offered to Asclepius, a gold, to resurrect a man who had already passed into the silence of the underworld. Asclepius accepted the gold and pulled the soul back from the jaws of death. This Zeus could not abide, for if a mortal man could conquer death, the divide between the human and the divine would vanish. The universe would unravel. The sky darkened over the city where Asclepius stood, his hands stained with the ichor of resurrection. The wind howled, picking up dust and leaves, and the air grew heavy with the scent of ozone. With a flash that turned noon into midnight, the thunderbolt fell. The healer, who had spent his life mending the broken weave of the body, was himself shattered. Apollo, the father, was struck silent by the death of his son. He could not strike Zeus, but he would not let the insult pass. In his grief, he took his bow and quiver and descended to the smoking forge of the Cyclopes, the one-eyed giants who forged the lightning for the king. There, Apollo unleashed his arrows, slaughtering the makers of the thunderbolt. For this act of vengeance, Zeus would force Apollo to serve a mortal king for a year, tending sheep in the fields of Admetusa, a humbling penance for the god of light. But the story of Asclepius does not end in ash. The legacy of the healer was too vital to die. Zeus, perhaps moved by the pleas of the sick or recognizing the necessity of mercy, placed Asclepius among the stars as the constellation Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. He raised his son to the status of a god, but a god with a boundary. Asclepius could heal, but he could no longer resurrect. The balance was restored. Yet, the echo of that forbidden power lingered in the minds of men. They did not forget the man who defied death. The cult of Asclepius swept across the ancient world like a tonic. Great sanctuaries, the Asclepia, rose in Epidaurus, Pergamon, and Corinth. These were the first hospitals, places of pilgrimage where the sick slept on stone beds in the Abaton, the forbidden sleeping chamber, waiting for the dream visitation of the god. In the dreams, Asclepius would appear, sometimes accompanied by his serpent, sometimes whispering a cure, sometimes performing a divine surgery. When they woke, many were healed. To the ancient Greeks, this myth was not merely a story about a doctor. It was a meditation on the terrifying limit of human ambition. It taught that while wisdom is a gift, the power over life and death belongs solely to the divine. It reinforced the sanctity of the natural order, that death is not a malfunction, but a necessary part of the cosmic machinery. Yet, it also offered hope. It deified the act of caring. It said that the alleviation of suffering is a holy thing, a virtue so potent it bridges the gap between Earth and Olympus. That legacy survives in the white coat of the modern physician and the emergency room siren that cuts through the night. Every time a doctor makes the rounds or a surgeon scrubs in, they are walking in the footsteps of the son of Apollo. The symbol of Asclepiusa, the single serpent entwined around a rough-hewn staffa, remains the emblem of the medical arts today, a reminder that healing is an ancient, sacred pact. Ultimately, the story of the healing of Asclepius asks us to accept the most difficult truth of being human, that we are finite. We are not gods, and our bodies are not machines to be fixed forever. But in the face of that inevitable end, we possess a spark of the divine. We possess the capacity to mend, to soothe, and to hold back the dark, if only for a little while. And sometimes a little while is enough.